Hey guys again, welcome to the top 100 co-op games of all time. This is continuing the collaboration with myself and Jason Perez from Every Night is Board Game Night. This is part 2 essentially. We're going through, I believe, 80 through 61. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. Again, same format as before, same caveats as before. Hope the audio is to your satisfaction. We did have some technical issues halfway through this one, so there is a bit of a jump cut, but you'll see it when it comes up, and hopefully it will get you a little bit of a giggle as well. So, see you next time.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jason from Every Night is Game Night, along with Luke, the broken Meeple. Say hi to the peoples, Luke.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, what's going on? We have returned to top 100 cooperative games. This section of the list is 80 through 61. So this is the 2/5 of the list. We split it up into chunks of 20. So this is going to be the second chunk of these things. Yeah, I hope that you enjoyed the first chunk. The first chunk had a bunch of games that you may not have heard of. This chunk will also have a bunch of games that you probably haven't heard of, which is kind of the point of a big old top 100 list, right? Luke has a couple. I have a couple more. So we're just going to run through those really fast and then, just do our thing and all that good stuff. Yeah, how you doing, buddy?
Not bad. Mine, work's calming down a bit. Some games are getting played, although the new releases are kind of dry this time of year. So one that gives me a little bit of a break to do things like top 10s and that, like one I did today and uploaded. But I am still sort of looking at every Friday. I get the new releases from Asmodee UK, and it's sort of like, oh, what can I request this week? Oh, it's all rubbish. There's nothing there. It's all just like Magic the Gathering, extra packs, and Yu-Gi-Oh or something, and then the board games might be a couple of tiny little games that no one's heard of or cares about. It's just like, oh. It does seem we only have 3 periods of the year when anything happens: Origins, Gen Con, and Essen. If it ain't those times of year, there are no new games. Or at least no noteworthy ones.
At least, yeah. If there's not like a huge Kickstarter delivering, then you're kind of screwed. Some people who are getting Seventh Continent right now, like as we speak, are pretty happy. But other than that,
Rising Sun's already happened, yeah, and it's mostly just Kickstarters that I'm involved with. So.
So this is the perfect time to nail a top 100. Like we said at the other channel, so this is our top 100 cooperative games. So we're taking cooperative and expanding the definition a little bit. We're expanding to basically any game where you cooperate. So semi-co-ops, one versus minis, there's cooperation in those games. So we're going to include those. I counted it up. We have 9 of them of those. So if you guys want to take those 9, chuck them, and then we'll release a video with some of the games that did not make our list. If you want a pure co-op list, you are free to do that. But that's how we did it. So, okay, I am going to get this rolling. The first game is actually on Luke's list. So I'm going to ask Luke to introduce Sylveon. Sylveon was his number 45, not on my list. Tell me why Sylveon is worth our time as a co-op.
Oh, it is. Sylveon is one of those omniverse games. If you remember Onirim or Onirim, or however you're going to pronounce it, depending on which side of the country you're on, those sort of games they're really good solo games, but they can also be played 2-player co-op, and I'm happy to play them either way. Sylveon's one of the ones that doesn't get talked about much. Everyone talks about Onirim and usually leaves it at that as the best one. And what have you got held up there?
Sylveon, but
oh, you have actually got it.
where is it? Is it? It looks flipped on my computer.
No, it's there. It's there. It's just
okay. There you go.
Dark and grey, but that's the one with the big giant fireball in the face. Yes.
That's the one.
But in that one, you're defending a forest from effectively this giant fire elemental. It's one of those kind of like tower defense style games where like the fire comes along in a row in stages, and you try and set up blocks and defenses. It's neat enough in itself, but what I love about it is when you get into the advanced rules, you have a deck of cards with all these different types of animals, and they do different things in order to either like quench the fires or grow trees, that kind of thing. And with the advanced mode, you actually have this drafting sort of mini-game phase where you actually create the deck. So you don't always have the same stuff. You'll have to select them from columns and go, well, I could get a bunch of the elephants. They do cool stuff and things like that. So it's pretty neat. But with the two-player co-op, it's essentially the same game, but you are both of you working together to have, like, you know, your deck of cards and, you know, chasing down that fire elemental. So it's whether I prefer it to an Irem, I don't know, but I like the way it works, and I love the variety in the animals and the different play styles, because there's even multiple victory conditions when you get into some of the more advanced modes. So yeah, it's kind of one of those unsung heroes, really, from the Omniverse universe.
It is definitely the one that is not talked about as much. Maybe Nautilion is kind of snuck in there as these, this is, you know, hit or miss on that one. I like it. I think it's a little too easy. I think the drafting is solvable in a sense where I think I've played it enough to where I used to play this all the time. Like I actually had this in the delivery room as my baby was being born. I had the big giant like thing, not as my baby was being born, that would be a little crazy, but like before while my wife was resting comfortably. So like we had the big giant thing in forest and whatever. I kind of win every time. And you know, Nehrum, I think it's not every time, like you might just get, you know, hose and whatever, but I kind of like that. I kind of like a 70-80 win percentage in these kind of casual things. Mine is closer to like 90-95 in Sylveon. That's my only thing, because I think I've solved it. Maybe I'm just like, I don't know, whatever. I've tried it a bunch of times. I've tried like tying one hand behind my back, and there's a hard mode and whatever it is. Once you get to the hard mode, it's like, whatever. So I do like it, though. I do like it is a really solid little tower defense game, and not a lot of tower defense card games out there, so that's definitely worth it on that. So all right, that is Sylveon. We should probably mention some of these designers' names. Shadi Torbay, part of the Oniverse series. Okay, so let's see, there it is, 79. This is a Jason special. Not a lot of people have played this. We are going from one of the smallest boxes to probably the biggest box, second biggest. That's going to be on this part of the list. Beast of Balance. Look at this monster over here. Have you heard of this, Luke?
No, that's a new one on me. I saw it on your list. It's like, have I even come across this one?
This was a Kickstarter, of course. And it is, I don't know if you remember, so we did top 10 solos. And I put Junk Art as a solo. And you were like,
we had it.
Jason likes to play with toys.
we were kind of like, yeah, that's literally just saying that Lego is one of your solo games.
This is, it is not Lego, but it is a stacking game. So, but it's a stacking game with a twist. It has app integration. So here we go, app integrated game right there. And what you do is, so you're building, you have all these pieces, and you're building with all these pieces, and you're trying to build as high as you can to balance them. And as you're building these pieces, and there's like, you know, shark and bear, you put them together and you start to morph. So like you could have the
what, Pokemon? Pokemon ripoff, is it?
It is basically stacking Pokemon. So like they've actually managed to combine this thing. The app does a lot of cool stuff with it. It's one of those games that I use as a therapist, you know, just to engage people and get their fine motor control going. And it has that kind of pop, so like the kids go, ooh, I get to make a Sharktopus or whatever it is. So I really like this game. The only barrier to entry is availability. It is a Kickstarter, so it's hard to get. And price. It was a pretty expensive package.
So where's the co-op mode in it then?
Well, I mean, there is no. It's basically a solo game where you push it, but you can actually work with other people. Like whenever you see a video, like if you see a playthrough video, people are like taking turns, like stacking it. It's like, okay, I'll stack, you stack, I stack, you stack. Yeah. You get a high score, and then you just move on to the next thing. So it's like, okay, I stack, you stack, I stack, you stack, I score. You can. You know, you can work on like there's people that get like, you know, within the hundreds like a usual score. Then you can get like 400 or 500 or whatever it is. Like you're making all sorts of over 9,000 animals and everything. So yeah, family family co-op. I will definitely say that. If you this would be, hey, what are you doing over here? It actually says cooperative play. It
actually does say it on the box, does it? It's not just a solo game that you're saying play with many people.
Exactly. It definitely works great as a family cooperative experience. So like, kind of like you go, I go, you go, I go. It's like, oh my God, what's going on here? So that is Beasts of Balance. Once again, I love this game. The price, because it is the app integration, you have like the custom pieces and everything. But I actually think if you're like have a kid, it's totally worth it. So that was that one. This next one is yours, my man. Unusual Suspects. That is number 78, 42 on your original list.
Yeah, I'm surprised it wasn't on yours actually. I mean, this one has got the co-op part of it, so. But with Unusual Suspects, it is a full co-op. It's sort of a party game as well, but it's takes that element of I've got one person who can't talk and is giving the clues versus everybody else, and it's the best way I can describe it is controversial Guess Who, or Guess Who for adults. Because that one was always like, does he have glasses? Does he have a mustache? And you flip them down and that was it. In Unusual Suspects, you're trying to whittle out all the innocent parties from essentially a 9/12 grid mugshot of all of them. And it takes every single racial, cultural, and urban diversity you can think of and puts them in this game. And it's definitely set in America. I mean, you've got American bikers, you've got hippies, you've got all the typical American tropes in there as well. But essentially, you flip over a card from a deck and it'll have things like, do they go to the gym? Do they like classical music? Do they enjoy playing catch with their kids or something? And all the clue giver can do, because they know who the guilty party is put a tick or a cross out to say yes or no. And then everybody else instantly jumps in, turning into the most judgmental people you've ever come across to whittle out the innocents by, for example, do they play catch with their kids? And you look at one of the characters on there and it's like, this guy does not have kids. I'm pretty certain he's never had a girlfriend, in order to have the kids. People... The nicest people around that you think, you're very nice, you're a lovely soul, instantly turn into the most judgmental critics ever. And it makes me laugh my head off when, you tell them a simple rule saying, look, don't say anything until the person's given the clue, because, we need to have the answer before we can really speak. And yet every game, somebody... even myself included at times, will instantly jump in the second the question gets flipped to give their opinion on something. It's like, we don't want to be judgmental people, but boy, for some reason when this game comes out, we just can't help it. It's just... But
you have to be judgmental. You can't just say, this person maybe, that person maybe. You never get anywhere unless you're going to be really judgy, unfortunately. I haven't played a ton of this game. I kind of put it in the same bucket as I would a Mountains of Madness, where it's it's a party game, and you have to have the right people for it. If you don't have the right people, if you have people that are at all sensitive, which I have, my family is kind of sensitive to that kind of thing.
It's not for everyone. Yeah,
definitely not for. It is not for everybody, and in the hyper right place where everybody's kind of on the same page culturally and whatever it is, but in a cross-cultural mix, this is not going to go well.
You'd be surprised. I have played this with a mix of people, white, black, African, Asian, or something. I've had a mix of pairs, even gender, gender and. So what's the phrase? You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But the gay side of the families and that. So
LGBTQ.
That's it. Yes. Sorry. But that's the phrase here. Long day. But basically, I've had all sorts of from that community play this game, and they get into it just as much. So it's they sort of take as much as they can dish out. But yeah,
give me some reps with this game in the right crowd, and then maybe it'll rise up there a little bit. But yeah, I'm not gonna give you crap for this. This is a good choice. Glad you put it on your list. Okay, so we have we're gonna streak along now. This is another one. I'm surprised. Or maybe I'm not surprised. This is the game right here, Black Orchestra. This is our number 77. So this was on my list, not on Luke's list.
When we get further up the list, I will bring the show and tell stuff when we get further up the list. Make it for yourself this time.
All of these games. They are all over here. So there we go. Black Orchestra. Have you played this, Luke?
I have, but only a couple of times. That's why. I mean, I did put it on my list, but about like the 90 something or whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I thought it was decent enough. It worked. It was challenging. I think the main thing that just stops me loving it to bits is mainly just the theme. I like. I think it's got a good theme and the history behind it, but it's just not a theme area I'm that interested in. So it's kind of like I've played it and gone, that's cool. I'll play it again, but just haven't really cared about it much since.
I'm not like into super into the theme in the sense like, I'm not going to sit there and go, ooh, Nazis, I want to play this. But it is a cool kind of take on it. So if you don't know the game, it's a cooperative game in which you are a bunch of historical, like a historical conspiracy circle within Berlin, and you are trying to assassinate Hitler. And you win the game by assassinating Hitler, which... Okay, that's a little shocking.
Everybody wins.
It's a little shocking. And it's kind of this like you're sneaking around the board. So the board is the usual kind of pandemic style. You're in a bunch of locations, everything. So you have to go and farm up some items. Very pick up to deliver. So like, bring a thing here, bring a thing there. So you're playing like the secret agent type things. While you're gearing up, you're getting your secrecy up, you're getting your zeal up. So once you get a certain number of zeal, because you can't just like wake up, roll out of bed and assassinate Hitler. You have to like build up to that. So then you have to, and Hitler's like a piece, and a lot of his different like Goebbels and everything are also pieces. So you have to get Hitler at a certain place at a certain time with certain items, and boom, and I think what stops this game from like hitting another level, not just the theme, but there's a lot of dice. Like dice, you use dice for pretty much everything, and if you miss the big dice roll, your host.
Yeah, that's it. It has a bit of a luck factor to it, but it's not too complex that or too long that is too much of an issue, really. I think if you can tailor the length, can't you, in it?
You are going to be over an hour. Like, you're going to be over an hour in this game. So that's the kind of thing about it. So, like, if my thing is, like, there's a randomness to length ratio that I can tolerate. So, like, if a game is too long, the longer the game is, then the less random I would like it to be. So, like, if we did One Deck Dungeon and the other thing, One Deck Dungeon is, fairly fast. I'll just, give me some randomness, and I'm good with that. This game is over an hour, bordering on 2 for the decent length playthrough. Do you want, after an hour and a half, to come down to a lucky dice roll and be like, oh, womp womp? And you get a couple of cracks at it. So, not sure why they did that. I think, like, I hear some people defending it. Oh yeah, this is fog of war. You never know what's going to happen. And well, I know I'm going to,
it gets the theme strong. The theme is strong with it. And to be fair, people like the Firefly game, and that's like 3 hours and then a lucky die roll. So that's the same sort of thing. But nah, I mean, those who are interested in the theme quite like, Black Orchestra for that. And even if like the backing behind it wasn't exactly okay, who's this? Who's published it? Who's designed it, etc. But no, if you like the theme, it's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I like it. I don't have it. It is in my friend's collection, so I'll be able to borrow it anytime I want to play it. It has a lot of historical kind of information. So, like, even though it's this kind of like a historical thing, Hitler was not assassinated. Spoiler alert. In real life, but you're gonna see like Dietrich Bonhoeffer. These are real people, and all this other stuff. So there's a lot of history, good tension. I do really like the game. I'm just saying, like, okay, this is, I guess, why it hasn't reached that second level of popularity. Is that some of these issues, but that is Black Orchestra. The next game is totally mine. I'm pretty much sure that you've never played this game.
Yeah, I've heard of this one though, at least.
You've at least heard of this one.
Yeah, this name does ring a bell.
Gloom of Kilforth is one of those giant fantasy big games, like a Gloomhaven's type game. Only this game kind of goes but I mean, just in terms of like a giant fantasy scenario game. But it goes in the other direction. It's more like I was kind of teasing Tristan Hall. Tristan Hall at this point has become a friend of mine. He's been on my show a couple of times. I was teasing him and saying, like, this game feels like Talisman Advanced. So if you play Talisman,
yeah.
Have you played Talisman?
Oh yeah, there's a few people I know that are fans of it in the sense that they know it's a bad game, but we just play it for laughs.
It's like Monopoly, basically.
It's our geeky Monopoly.
It's geeky Monopoly, right? So like this is much better than geeky Monopoly, but you're roaming around the land. and you're slowly gearing up to, take out the bad guy. And the land is like a 5x5 grid of cards, so you're kind of crisscrossing across the same land, but you're gearing up a little bit. And then you have to get to a certain place, and you have to beat whatever scenario monster is out there. So, I mean, that sounds like Talisman, but there's a lot more modern mechanisms to it. I'm getting the Kickstarter. The second printing is coming in soon. Can't wait to see that. So don't want to talk too much about it because I know Luke hasn't played it, but I can definitely recommend Gloom of Kill for if you want that experience of just roaming the land, leveling up, rolling lots and lots and lots of dice. There's another game that is very similar that's going to be a little bit higher on the list that I think Luke could recommend more, but I'm going to hold on until we get to that list, and I'll point it out when it comes. So that is Gloom of Killforth. It is on my list. That made number 41, so I actually really 41 is a pretty high thing for me, so I really like it.
If it's a big box, it'll be high on the list.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
If it's a big box, it will be high on the list. Is that the rule of thumb? So far, we've had Beast of Balance. You've had Gloom of Killforth. You even mentioned Gloomhaven also. So basically, if it comes in a suitcase box, it's going to make your top 50.
We could bury a cat in the box. We can get there. Okay, so that was an in-joke if you wanted to hear our top solo list. Anyway, so I am not an advocate of burying cats, believe me. Okay, so the next one is yours. This is Battlestar Galactica. It was actually number 41 on your list, so we're basically trading off number 41 places here. So Battlestar Galactica, tell us why that belongs on the list.
Why is it not on yours? I'm curious about that.
Because there's a better one that does basically the same thing, only way higher on my list.
True, fair enough. But okay, I mean Battlestar Galactica. I've not actually watched the TV show. This is where everyone's going to be at my throats for this because I've not watched the TV show. But I don't think you need to enjoy this one, and it definitely is quite complex. Battlestar Galactica is just the classic thing of humans versus Cylons. You're trying to survive in space. Get your food, get your fuel, get home. But you're trying to complete these objectives, these missions, but in your midst is some Cylons in hiding. So people are sabotaging the missions as you go along. They're screwing up your supplies, and as the game progresses, you end up with more loyalty cards that basically say whether you are fully human or a full Cylon or some other variation depending on the number of players or expansions you've got. But it really does tie in well to the show. You've got all the characters, they all act like how they're meant to, and it's just a really good sort of tension driven because there's Cylons around. And that they are just going to, at the worst possible time, screw you up. And you're trying to figure out who they are before it happens. The expansions, I think Pegasus is the one where you get the other ship that you can go on the other ship and start firing that off. You've got the little, almost like a mini game around the outside of Galactica where the little ships come in and you send off your little fighters to go kill them off. It does bring about a very good epic feel, and it definitely is a full-on co-op experience. There's no Lone Ranger. You gotta work together, and even then, you're usually winning by the skin of your teeth by the time the Cylons have had their way with you. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know the TV show. Probably I'm never going to find time to ever watch it, but the game is enjoyable. If anything hurts this game, it's long. It's a long, complex affair.
What are you, 3-4 plus hours, somewhere around there?
It varies. I mean, 3 hours is kind of more typical. If it goes any longer than that, then people are taking too long. But yeah, it's not a short game, and that's the bit that hurts it, but it does give it a good co-op feel.
I'm really you are probably the first person that I've run into, not that I've run into a million people, that like this game but aren't familiar with the IP. Usually people who want to play this game are either familiar with the IP or they just want to kind of play in a sci-fi world, like they like sci-fi. So the other game we're talking about is Dead of Winter. Clearly is going to be higher on our list because it's Dead of Winter and people like that game. But this game, I'm willing to bet if in a world where Dead of Winter didn't exist, this game would be a little bit higher. Or if people like sci-fi or whatever the IP is, it is too long. I mean, I don't need that. I mean, plus it's full of it's long and it's full of negotiation where people don't really know what's going on.
I like that though.
You just kind of dither, if I wanted to, if I don't need a game to dither, I could dither doing whatever I want to do. So anyway, it's a neat one. I'm not going to talk too much stuff about it, but it is not on my list. Sorry, though. But that is Battlestar Galactica. So now I have 2 games in the 74.
Stop you
sorry.
just one sec. I need to change something downstairs quick for the next hour and a half or whatever. Be right back. I'll just transition this one in when I do the thing.
No problem.
Sorted. Okay, cool. You can start fresh.
So next coming up, I have 2 games that did not appear on Luke's list. One of which, though, the one that I'm going to talk about right now, another form of this game appeared on the list. So I'm willing to. I'd like to hear your stuff about Dragonfire. Dragonfire is the re-implementation of Shadowrun Crossfire, which did appear on Luke's list, did not appear on mine. Pretty down below, so we're not going to talk about Shadowrun Crossfire. This was number 38 on my list, so that's pretty darn high. This game is a deck builder, but it has a certain wrinkle on deck building. In deck builders, you're used to kind of like flying through your cards, like you build your deck and you're shuffling, going all the time. In this game, the cards come a lot less frequently. But they come directly into your hand, and you are going to use those cards to beat monsters in front of you. You're doing basic like deck building things, but I find it to be a lot more kind of tactical on the board. You're not there to build the perfect deck, whatever it is. You're buying cards. You're desperately trying to. This game is hard. Like let's not mess with it. Both Shadowrun Crossfire and Dragonfire. This game may be a little bit easier because it gives you a couple more tools. Like it's actually more involved than Shadowrun Crossfire. It gives your hero a little bit more tools to deal with the thing, but it is still, you're still going to get reamed in this game. What did you think of Shadowrun Crossfire?
Shadowrun Crossfire, I found it good for that. I mean, I played the Shadowrun RPG, so that kind of was a link for me. But even then, it was low on my list, and I don't think it even made. I don't think I even got it into my 100 at the end of the day, or it was low enough so that it never hit this chart because the main issue with Shadowrun Crossfire is that the game itself is fine, not the easiest to get into, but it's a deck builder, you're working together, it's a good co-op, and it's got the good sci-fi theme with it. The bit that hurts it is the leveling system is atrocious. You have to house rule the XP system like crazy, and if you're willing to do that, it's still decent. Even if you can get past that whole, if you fail the scenario, you do this little other things to see if you fail it badly or fail it less badly. It's kind of odd. But the leveling system is ridiculous because you have to play a ton of games in order to get this, to get your guys to have any remote ability increase, and they're not usually that impressive at first anyway. So you have to pretty much house rule that you get XP just for sitting at the table so that you level up quicker and can get into the new stuff a bit faster. But, yeah, I mean, the deck builder's fine. I mean, it was low on my list anyway, so it wasn't one that I was going nuts for. Dragonfire is just simply a case that I have not had a chance to check that one out. But because it was based similar to that one, from what I heard, I didn't seek it out. And I could have
combined them. I could have combined them on a list, but they're different enough. Dragonfire adds a couple of things that add complication. Like you would think like a big kind of wonky game, the next edition would kind of simplify it. No, sir. They added more. And it's just as hard. Like, you have the event deck and you could die all sorts of ways. You could die to monsters, like just doing damage to you over and over again. You could die to the event deck, which just like, oh, I'm going to win. No, you're not. Now all of a sudden the enemy is immune to damage for a round and it's just going to, freely attack you. And it's like, oh, well, there you go. But at the same time though, like when that stuff doesn't happen, and we're talking about like a bell curve. So like there's times where it's going to be really easy, times where it's going to be really hard, but like the middle times, it's very satisfying because it's really smart. Like you have to really kind of challenge yourself to say, build your deck properly, get the right items, build the right combos, and as opposed to a lot of deck builds, we're focused on your deck. Like I said, you're focusing on the you're focusing actually on the board and the monsters. Like, you're not just buying a card because it combos well. You're buying a card because that monster over there needs to die right now. And you have to, realign your brain a little bit. I I really enjoy that experience. It's, the hour and a half, and it's a lot of expandability. They are releasing packs for this all the time. So if you want to get into Dragonfire, you like that sound of that, I can definitely recommend it. So that is Dragonfire. And Shadowrun Crossfire, it's still there. Like, it's not like it died as a game. Although I take that back. The printing is very wonky. It's hard to get a copy. But if you can get a copy, I think people are selling their copies now because Dragonfire came out and people are like, oh, this is better than that. You might be able to get that a little bit easier. So so that is Dragonfire. This next game you have probably not played ever. Ever. Very few people. This is one of those kind of, if you like it, you are into it, and you're going to preach the praises of this game. And if you're not, you probably never heard of it.
Is it Kickstarter, and does it come in a suitcase?
You're going to laugh. Oh, God.
Oh, what a surprise. Giant box.
A giant box full of fantasy. How did you know?
I'm just getting a trend here. And that does seem to be the thing on Kickstarter these days or something. It's like, here's a giant box full of stuff with a cool cover. It can crush and kill you, therefore it must be amazing. That is pretty much what Kickstarter has become these days.
Oh, okay. So this is a little bit different. So this is Darkest Night's 2nd edition. So this is an old Victory Points game. So Victory Points...
Yeah.
Hey, you take that back.
No. I've got a couple of their games. They do some of these games, but you're talking Victory Point games, to say, because production quality was never their strong point. So
exactly.
But that one looked a lot nicer.
So Victory Point games, they used to, if you don't know, most gamers who are going to be watching this know, but if you don't know, Victory Point games, they make a lot of like solid games, solo co-op, that kind of thing, but they're in these pizza boxes, and they use laser cutting technologies as opposed to like kind of outsourcing it to China. They would print in-house in America, which the tokens were all sooty. The cards were all like, papery, and it just wasn't like, they really wanted you to buy the games for the gameplay. And they had some pretty neat games. So they went back, they took their best games and they gave them a premium print run. So the first one they did was Nemo's War. Nemo's War, really successful print for them. Really fun game in and of itself. Could have made it, I like that one better as a solo rather than as a co-op, so that just dropped off the list. This one, Darkest Night 2nd edition, is another one of them pizza box games. Came out in 2012, so it is not Kickstarter hotness technically. But they did kickstart the second printing, and the reason why this box is so big, look at this thing. Let me just for you, Luke, I'm going to whip it out one more time. There you go.
And upside down.
It is this and 5 expansions. So they just kept on expanding it and expanding it and expanding it. It is basically kind of an eldritch horror riff where you're in, it's one big land. The land has been conquered by a necromancer. And you are kind of going to different spots. You're going to defeat the necromancer's blight. You're going to be slowly gearing up, so you have to basically defeat the necromancer. You need to only the character with the holy relic, so to speak, will defeat the necromancer. So you have to go to different spots. You're beating the sub-bosses. You're looking for clues. So, that's the eldritch horror. Eventually, you're going to find enough clues to find the holy relic to defeat the necromancer. What I like about this game is that as opposed to like the eldritch horror or the pandemic or whatever it is, where the enemy is random, here it's actually a piece on the board. The necromancer is there. And it just kind of like goes from place to place to place, laying down blight. And if you get caught fighting it, you're gonna lose. You're just gonna lose. So there's this tactical element that's absent, I think, in Arkham Horror, you just run around, like you're going to the gates and the gates are very stationary, but you can't like mess with them. Like, in this game, you can really like lure, okay, I'm going to take the necromancer now. I'm going to, blow my secrecy. Here I am, necromancer. The necromancer comes down. So then all of your other friends can kind of like move around and, do the clue searching and, beat enemies and all that kind of stuff. There's this extra level of tactical movement there that I find is absent in a lot of these games. So that just in and of itself, and a lot of player powers, a lot of content, and a beautiful printing. Like this is not a cheap game. But this is another one where it's like, okay, if you're into this, it is worth it. That is Darkest Night. So I don't know if so. Okay, so this is not quite a giant box full of goodness on Kickstarter. It was an old game that got reprinted. So does that count against your rule on that?
Nope. Sounds good though. Sounds good.
Not to spoil, but I know the Arkham games writ large are definitely higher on your list. But does that kind of that just kind of riff on Arkham Horror? Are you an Arkham enough fan to kind of take a look at some of these riffs on it, or is it just like, I'm good with Arkham?
Nah, I mean, I'll take a look at the others, if only because it's nice to actually go, oh yeah, this is a slightly fantasy horror setting and it's not Cthulhu. There are times when I want to try something that isn't Cthulhu based. So no, that sounded pretty good.
Yeah, that is Darkest. I really enjoy this game. I mean, we're getting to the point where, like, if the game is off Luke's list and on my list, it is really high up there. There's a few of those that the higher we get, the more enthusiastic we're going to get. So I'm really looking forward to the rest of the list.
I think it just gets to that point where, like, if it is one of these Kickstarter projects, then you are going to have the issue that, you know, one of us may not have played it, but then I wonder how many out there have also played it. Because if it's Kickstarter only, like it never got a retail version, it means that only a diehard cult fan base is going to have the game and more than likely love it, but it will be that cult fan base. I mean, you know, Kingdom Death Monster much, you know, same sort of thing.
the cult fan base for this game has a cult fan base, but the cult fan base is actually people who like the pizza box printing. Like, as a matter of fact, there are people who complained about the second printing. They're going, you know, I like the older version and it had like gothic art and it's very, you know, gothic feel and everything. And I'm like, just enjoy the fact that you were not getting soot all over your hands while you're playing. Not complaining, you know.
Well, I got Trieste is the main one I've got from Victory Point Games in the other room, and you know the cards and that are pretty basic. I don't think they're sooty, but you know they're pretty basic artwork, and there's not much in the way of component quality there. But it comes in what is pretty much just a fold-away cardboard box. You know, it's essentially like a miniature shoebox for it. And it's just okay, come on, I wouldn't mind a better printing.
They are slowly pounding through the back catalog of titles. Like I said, Nemo's War, Darkest Night, now Gem Rush, which is a amazing little game. Did not make my list again because I preferred solo to co-op. I actually made my list, but a little bit lower. I want to see what it does with the better printing. So I think if one of their games is good enough, they're going to revisit it, which is you know, a pretty cool thing. All right, so this next game made both of our lists. It made my list as number 100, so it's just squeezed on there. This is much higher on your list. This is
when we both played it, and you have a copy. Give me a copy. It's like I have only been able to play this game several times because I know someone who had it, and he's moved away now, so I'm never going to see this game like again because I don't know if the UK ever had a retail proper like copy of it. It seems to be like American Central, but it's kind of like I want it.
This was mine, not my friends. This was mine. I'm not giving it up.
I want that game though because I mean. The theme was enough to get me to want to play it, you know, even after hearing like Tom Vasel rave about it. But even once I was in it, it's kind of like, it's not that complex, but the theme just works so well, and it's a bit like playing another, like, I love Flashpoint Fire Rescue, you know, that co-op with the firefighting theme. But we don't have a lot of co-ops in general, or even games in general, that take the emergency services themes. So we don't have many paramedic games, we don't have very many firefighting games, and we certainly have next to no policeman type games. So this one was kind of like, oh cool, now you can run a police force. And as much as you have to suspend your disbelief at times with the fact that everything takes place in a 12-block radius. So,
everything,
so like,
every crime ever is like boiling with crime.
Yeah, so in 12 blocks you're taking care of, like, you know, traffic jams, you know, speeding tickets, you know, riots, you know,
hostage situations, gang insurrections.
Yeah. It gets worse and worse. You got the small crimes, but you got the big crimes as well. And it's just the fact that everything takes place in 12 blocks. So it's like, why don't you just move? It'll be a lot easier. It's like, you know, even places like Die Hard 3 and, you know, those films where it took place within blocks, they at least spaced it out a little bit. But it is a bit weird like that. But nah, the game itself, theme works great, not complicated. People get into the theme, they start cracking Police Academy jokes and all sorts of in-jokes from movie pop culture references.
If you're of a certain age, those movies are old, sir.
Yeah, but most people, well, certainly my age, will have heard of the Police Academy ones, but there might be recent stuff that people have watched. But on top of that, you know, you've got the full co-op mode, but even the traitor mechanic in it, I quite like. The dodgy cop, or whatever it is, the bad cop, where somebody's like a traitor in your midst. I love playing that mode as well. You know, it fits thematically and it works. But yeah, since I no longer can see this game ever again, it's like if it ever gets a retail release in Britain, I'm nabbing it. But Thank you. This is.
I had to.
I'll give you the address. You can post it over.
There you go.
You know, your shelves behind you are sagging a bit. Allow me to, you know,
It's true.
allow me to lighten the load. You know,
I do enjoy this. Like you said before, you mentioned a couple of games I enjoy a little bit better. I cannot get past the fact that it's just, and it's not 12 blocks, it's like 4.
oh yeah, so it's a small, it's a small map.
Bubbling with crime. Like, and it strains the credulity. Like they could have gone at this in a much more realistic way. It didn't have to be so cartoony, and it makes a big deal. Like, let me just take a look. There's a thing where over here where it says that they talk to real cops in the making of this game so that it felt realistic. Get out of here! You didn't talk to nobody. You watched movies. You're reading books. You're. This is like, I can't. Like, there's certain games. You know, it's solid. Like it has like a little thing where you either go as a cop or you can hop into cars and like, change the, get to places faster and everything. So you're kind of, that's a cool thing where it's like you can either take care of the crisis now or take a turn to hop in the car in order to be able to get to the other crisis, so there's crises all over the place. So it has that cool thing. So like a lot of cooperative games have that kind of short-term, long-term thing where it's like, okay, do I deal with the crisis now or do I deal with the long-term, which is in this game, solve the crime. So like you have a tracker, and if you move yourself up a tracker enough, you have enough evidence to solve the crime. So like you have to balance that. This game just really hammers you with crises all over the board, which is fine and good gameplay. I just wish for that they had chosen a different theme to more represent that, like fires. If this was actually fires, I wouldn't mind so much because you can believe that. It's like, okay, it's fire all over the place. But like 7 hostage situations burbling up. Okay. You had me at 4, 5.
Yes. I'm moving. I'm transferring out of this precinct as soon as possible.
And as Luke said, it's a very hard game to get, so I am not giving it up for my collection. That is Police Precinct. That is our number 72.
You sounded like I almost could tempt you at that point, but you're sort of bad-mouthing it a little bit too much. Maybe eventually you'll think, yeah, you know what? I don't need this anymore, Luke.
I like it enough. I like my co-op, so it is staying right here. So that is our number 72. Eventually we're going to have to talk about putting a little stamps. Like that's the one thing I would want on here is like numbers to make sure people know what the numbers are. So this next game, number 71 is Luke's. Another one of I believe this is not a pure co-op either.
It's technically an all versus one. It's a dungeon crawl, sci-fi dungeon crawl, but it's essentially everyone versus the Overlord. And this is Aliens, the board game. I mean, yes, you've got the Alien versus Predator one out there, but if you just want
level 7. So
level 7 Omega Protocol. Yeah, do not get confused with the old Escape level 7 because that was rubbish. this was barely even the same universe. This is barely the same universe, but with this one, this is if you just wanted the Space Marines versus Aliens style gameplay in the board game from Aliens, then this is where you go. Your Space Marines have gone into a space station. They've got a mission to do, retrieve something, go find out, whatever. You're tooled up with all these cool guns, and these aliens are popping out of various areas, but the Overlord effectively, they have the map layout, but they almost kind of design where certain traps and ambushes are going to happen. And a lot of it is based on I think it's called the adrenaline system or fear system. It's one of those two. And the idea being that as the human characters do special things, to further their game, they're giving the sort of resource to the Overlord player who can spend it to do things like, cave-ins, stuff like base roof falls on you or something, or like vents open and the aliens can pour out of them, and eggs can appear, and hatch things. There's all sorts of cool stuff that you've seen in a lot of these alien sci-fi tropes, but it's a solid dungeon crawl. For some reason didn't get enough buzz, I suppose because it's a little convoluted at times. The rule book's not perfect and it can get fiddly in places, but if you've got someone who knows the rules well, decent DM for the Overlord, it is basically like, I want to be a Space Marine, here's my giant gun, let's go in and kill some aliens, and chances I will get eaten. So it just worked really well. And yeah, it's all versus one, but 4 Marines are cooperating against this Overlord, so it's we're going to allow...
convince me, man. These games belong on that list.
Yeah, well, just explaining to the fans. Yeah,
like I said, there's 9 of them. Take 9 co-ops from our Didn't Make Top 100. Shove them in there if you don't like these games. So there you go.
Yep, and if you don't like Kickstarters, take the other 5. But so,
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, Level 7 Mega Crawl. It's a sci-fi dungeon crawl. Aliens, the board game, basically.
Aliens, not Alien. Alien is the horror
plural.
board game.
The action version.
This is the action version. I have not played it. I would play. I'm not as big a sci-fi guy. I don't seek out sci-fi as much as I seek out fantasy. I do like Star Wars Imperial Assault. I think that's a game that does something very similar to this game in the Descent system. So, I like that. Do I need Omega 7 in my life if I have Star Wars Imperial Assault? Tell me.
It does play very differently to Imperial Assault. I mean, Imperial Assault is closer to Descent. You've got your characters and the opponent's already got their sort of thing set up. It's like a campaign book. This one's a bit more fluid because, I mean, you can get stuff as you go through, but the whole adrenaline thing of like, I want to do these abilities, but then the Overlord's going to get cool stuff to use later, and they might spend cheap amounts just to get the odd little enemy out, or they might save it up for these massive sort of almost like movie-esque, situations that can occur. So it does play very differently to Imperial Assault. Whether you need multiple sci-fi dungeon crawls in your life is another question. There's only so much time, but I mean, if you want an Aliens style dungeon crawl, then that's the one to go for.